Central School Board of Education meeting. I am School Board President Paul Byrne, and I'd like to begin the meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that. I'll second.
Is that Kathy and Tim?
Jenny
and Tim.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 6-0 if Carol is not on the phone, or is she on the phone? Carol, are you with us?
Not yet.
We'll go with pass 6-0. Could I have a motion to approve the regular agenda? And I'd like to make one switch. Roman numeral 6 and 7. I'd like to switch them around in order to have a couple minutes to review questions during board member comment time. All in favor?
I think you need a motion.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to make that change and to approve the regular agenda.
I'll make it. Kathy.
Second, Mike.
Okay, Kathy and Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 6-0. Our next section is on public comment. I'd like to read the statement of public participation in online board meetings. Each month, our agenda includes 2 items for public comment. The first of which is the beginning of the meeting and called public comments for agenda items. Agendas for our meeting can be found on the district website under the Board of Education tab. The second public comment for questions or comments regarding non-agenda items, and that is towards the end of our meeting. It will be during this second comment period that we will take questions regarding the reconfiguration once Dr. Ward has shared our plan with you. Cato Meridian Board of Education is pleased to welcome community and staff to our meetings. The board is very interested in hearing public comment, as our role is to represent citizens of our school district. Therefore, the Board of Education does request the following. Please provide your name in your text with your question or comment. Regarding school-related issues, every effort should have been previously made to settle or answer questions regarding the issue through the administration based on established board policy or administrative procedure. Remarks should be brief and pertinent to the subject area. You are asked to limit your comments to your concerns with your child. No comments should be made about any other student or any Cato Meridian Central School staff member during your comment. Reminder, please do not use the name of any Cato Meridian Central School District personnel or individual students' names during your comments. You may submit your personalized comments in writing to the superintendent or board for our review through the district email system. And thank you very much for your cooperation. And you'll be texting your questions or comments to 315-427-8269. And just so you know, this number will only be active during our meeting tonight, and it is there. So, with that in mind, are there any, I'll be accepting texts on this for just a minute. Are there any comments on our agenda items tonight? I'm going to call that a no at this point. So I would like to move on to a presentation given by Dr. Terry Ward, Superintendent of Schools, regarding the reconfiguration of grade levels beginning in the fall of 2020.
Thank you, Paul. First, I just want to say I hope everyone's doing well out there. I hear a lot of great stories through our teachers and our administrators about kids working really hard. Keep it up, kids. These are times where we all persevere, and you guys are doing a great job. And also keep it up, parents. Just being a parent myself and having 3 kids at home, trying to do their work, I live what you're living. So keep up the good work out there. So without further ado, I'm going to just 1 second, please. Paul, can you see that on your screen?
I can.
Okay, great. So this presentation is to try to answer, questions that we have from our public, as well as just kind of letting public know, the speed at which things are happening and why they're happening the way that they are. So this is the reconfiguration plan for 2020. The board and I have been working on this reconfiguration plan for about approximately 2 months. So I'm just going to share with you kind of what we have so far. So the timeline about when we started thinking about we needed to do things differently. Just a review of what we had done. January 21st, Governor Cuomo in New York State proposed a $28.5 billion spending plan. Essentially what that means is Cato Meridian was going to get 2.94% increase for the 2020-2021 school year. So that was prior to COVID. So we had some preliminary public session comments about our budget, and some of these things were in writing as well, communications at home or on our Facebook page, which was the 2 pieces that we were looking to add this year to our budget was adding an all-day pre-K and adding an agriculture program. And with that 2.94% increase, we knew we could do those things. So everything looked good moving forward. And just so you know, moving forward, one of the questions was, are we going to try to keep all-day pre-K and agriculture program? And the answer is we're going to keep it in there for as long as we can. And I'm going to explain the budget timeline and about what that timeline would look like. So on March 14th, I wrote a letter about closing schools. We shifted to online learning and distributed paper and pencil activities. March 31st is when we canceled spring break, and that really wasn't my decision. That was a decision made by Governor Cuomo. The timeline continued. It's April 3rd, New York State agrees to the 2021 budget. And Governor Cuomo announces that all schools in 2021 will get the same state aid as 1920. That's a great news headline, but the problem is the devil is in the details. What I mean by that is he was going to do that by using the federal CARES restoration money that the state was getting from the federal government. So he was supplementing what we would have gotten, $184,895. The other piece, and this is the part that is unprecedented, this has never happened before, not that I'm aware of, and not just in Cato Meridian, but in our state. And that is the quarterly takebacks that the governor is talking about. It's kind of hard to plan any budget when you really don't know the money that you're going to be getting in the future. So again, it's never happened. Also, too, one of the things with quarterly takebacks, we really have to assume the worst, simply because can you imagine us cutting a teacher in the middle of the year? Let's say I'm just using an example, a kindergarten teacher in the middle of the year because Governor Cuomo took back more than we had thought. And then students are displaced into other kindergarten classrooms. We don't want to do that. So we really have to budget on really where we think the floor of the budget is going to be. How do we know that? What are we using to predict that? First of all, you can just see some news headlines. These are just ones that I've taken over the past couple of days. And you can see, these are all over. This is not just a Cato Meridian thing. This has been in the news. In fact, 3 days ago, Governor Cuomo said that he would have to cut education by 50%. I'm going to tell you that if you cut education by 50%, not one school district would be open in New York State. However, 2 days ago now, so it's getting a little more recent, he said that schools would have a 20% cut. So again, that's just a what if. It's nothing that we have seen. So this the quarterly take-back amount, to get back to that. So the quarterly take-back amount is going to happen around May 3rd. That is when the governor is going to, because the state budget goes from January to December, obviously. So the first time the quarterly take-back will happen in New York State, and this is for every entity in New York State that receives funds, would be about May 3rd. So we could predict a little bit as far as what the quarterly takebacks could be for the school year in the 2020-2021 school year. History tells us, where are we getting these numbers from? The last time we had a stock market crash was in 2008. This was in my letter to the families here at Cato Meridian. During that financial crisis, our budget was reduced by $6.4 million. It was called the gap elimination adjustment. And so the worst yearly cut was the 11-12 school year with a $1.8 million reduction in state aid. So that was our worst year. So historically, there's a stock market crash, and then there's a reduction in school aid. So when I wrote the letter, somewhere between $1 and $2 million that we need to find, really it's based on this data, which was the last time that we had seen a stock market downturn. So planning for the future. The Board of Education and I would like to maintain our programs. That's something that we would like to do. We want to make a structural change, not just in one moment in time cut. So what we mean by that is we want to make a change that is going to not only give us a little bit of money moving forward for next year, but also a structural change that will pay off as far as year after year of savings. So that's something that the reconfiguration really looked at. We're making budget adjustments that will benefit the district financially year after year, making cuts through attrition when possible. I will explain this a little bit further down the road. And it has a lot to do with the 7th and 8th grade teachers going over to the high school. If needed, cuts will be across the board, not just one department. So basically, with the cuts that have been public thus far, we're going to be saving about $300,000. That's on the light end. We hope that there's federal money that comes through to New York State for education. If that is the case, then our budget won't look as we won't need to save $1.8 million or $2 million in this budget. But at the same time, if we do need to cut other pieces, this would not just be a Cato Meridian thing. We have had discussions about cutting across the board, not just one particular department. So far, The reconfiguration plan really includes, as most of you know, pre-K through 6th grade, Cato Meridian Elementary School, and a 7th through 12th Cato Meridian Junior Senior High School. And so we have some questions from the community in a little bit later, and I will get to those. I put them in the presentation. A couple of reasons for the reconfiguration. Yes, it is a financial crisis, but also we've lost over 500 students in the last 10 years. The good news for our district is, based on live birth data, we can see that is leveling off the next 3 to 4 years for us. So our kindergarten enrollment is going to be somewhere between 60 and 70 students, and that's based on live birth data that we get. The new configuration, the reconfiguration, will save us approximately $300,000 annually, and that's without touching a program. So we were looking for something where we could maintain our programs for our kids. So where is that $300,000 in savings? There is a reduction of an administrator. We'll talk about that in a little while. There's a reduction in office staff. Obviously, right now we have 3 offices that we're running in the elementary, middle, and high school, and a reduction. So guidance office as well. We have a guidance office in the middle school and the high school type of thing. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Reduction of 2 English teachers. Luckily, we have one through attrition that's already told us that she is not returning to Cato Meridian next year. We wish her well. And one through the Learning Center reconfiguration. Our Learning Center position is currently staffed by a certified English teacher. So those are really where the $300,000 in savings comes from. There are some other incidental savings that comes in with that too, that will be later in the presentation. But this is the piece that's really important, and I would like people to understand most, which is future reductions can now be through attrition, as most content area teachers are 712 certified. So for example, I'm going to use the social studies department. By housing every teacher that's 712 certified in the high school, we have 5 social studies teachers. We have 7th grade, currently a 7th grade social studies teacher, 8th grade, and the social studies teachers at the high school. Now, if one of those particular social studies teachers retires, now we can almost absorb that whole teaching position possibly. And so it would, again, be a savings, and also keep class sizes still relatively small. And that's not just for social studies. I'm just using that as an example. That's for really all departments. It's for the technology department. It's for really any department. So it helps us because those teachers are all in one building together. In our current situation, if a 7th grade social studies teacher or retired, for example, then we would have to replace that teacher because they're in the other building. So with everyone in the same building, we can do that over time. Concerns about reconfiguration. These are things that were either use the Google form or folks, there were some folks that directly emailed me about, some of the changes. I'm just going to look at my notes here. The first concern about reconfiguration is the change is too quick. This does seem very quick. However, I will tell you, with budgetary timelines, there really is no other way for us to move. If we don't react to what we know is going to be a financial strain on our school district next year with the governor's take back, we just think that that's irresponsible. Again, we don't want to get into a situation where we're laying off a teacher in the middle of the year, for example. So that's really the reason why it seems quick. But we think that it's the least impact on our kids in order to save some money, moving forward, that we're going to need to trim our budget. The 7th and 8th grade concerns about being in the high school. Just know that Mr. Gleason has really worked hard with Mrs. Mahoney's help and Mr. Scholl's help, and we have it where the 7th and 8th grade will mainly be separated from the rest of the high school. And Mr. Gleason, I know you're out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about where the 7th and 8th grade would be?
Battery 100%.
Oh my God.
You're on mute, Sean.
There, unmuted, sorry. Yeah, so when you come in the main entrance, either one, the old entrance and the new entrance, it's going to be 8th grade to the right, 7th grade to the left, and they're going to be there, and then we're going to have labs, science labs that are going to have to be accessed by upper grade levels, and we're going to work on that and make sure that we can, do what we can to make sure that the contact is minimal, and the 10th, 11th, 12th grade are minimally impacted with the 7th and 8th grade and 9th grade. Did you guys get
Gary,
that?
you're muted.
I'm struggling with my content here on my connectivity. You guys have
We
me?
did get that part.
I think Dr. Ward's still talking, but he's muted.
Do you guys have me? This is Sean. Do you have me?
All right, we're good, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you guys see that and hear me okay now?
Yes.
Very good.
Sorry about that. One of the other concerns was this was not discussed at a board meeting before the decision was made. And what I'd like to say about that is we do that whenever we can. We pride ourselves, myself and the board, about taking community input and things like that. But with this decision, with it being so sensitive to personnel and things like that, it's really hard to discuss in public before going out with a decision. And again, we did look at other areas, and we feel that this is the best way to have least impact on kids and maintain our programs with the reconfiguration. What's the plan for the other 700,000 in cuts? So it really depends. There's factors that are involved in that. Certainly, we are offering a teacher retirement incentive for our teachers that are eligible to retire. And so that is one way for us to cut into that $700,000. It really just depends on how much, what our budget's going to look like, what the governor's budget take back amount is really going to be before we need to get into other ways to get to the other $700,000 in cuts. So right now we're at 300,000, and we have plans moving forward, such as offering a teacher retirement incentive to help save some money on next year's budget. Will the school budget be voted on? That is a question that is still up in the air, to be honest with all of you. This is a New York State thing. This is not a Cato Meridian thing. The rumor out there is at the beginning of June is when we would have a budget vote. But at the same time, they're still trying to work out the logistics of trying to vote during a COVID, not in person, or do we do it in person type of vote. So that's something that that really will be up to New York State. We really have no say on that particular piece. Of course, we want people to vote. Concerns about reconfiguration continue. The physical location, Mr. Gleason just talked a little bit about the 7th and 8th graders really being in the front of the building with Mr. Gleason, the high school principal, kind of close up front in the building. Yes, and there's a couple of ways that they could cross paths, but for the most part, their content area, subjects are right in one hallway. The budget.
That's the plan.
Yeah, the budget has not been presented to the public. That is absolutely true. We have talked about the budget in public session, as I alluded to earlier in this presentation. But I will tell you, because we don't have the governor's number yet. We can't put together a budget without that. So in the beginning of May, again, is when his first take back period is. We'll have a better idea as far as what we can expect for revenue. And for those folks out there that don't know, our budget is 68% state aid. So just think about it in those terms. When we don't know what 68% of our money is going to be, that's a hard thing to do. So we're not going to put a budget out until we know for certain what we're going to do. We didn't want to put out a budget that said, what if. How will this affect sports? We'll see moving forward. Is that one of the areas, if we need to go to $2 million, that would be affected? Possibly. But that's something that, again, we won't know until May when we present our budget. How class sizes will be affected? Class sizes shouldn't be affected very much. There are certain things we're looking at, but we believe in small class sizes. That's something that the board believes in, the administrators believe in, obviously teachers believe in that. So we're going to try to do that as much as possible. I will tell you that there have been cases where we have been running a class size in the high school, for example, of 1 student to 1 teacher. And I will tell you moving forward that we just can't do that. We just can't afford that. So yes, we are looking at that. Bullying in the high school. So I did a little bit of research on, first, I always try to look at numbers. In the 1 year that was compared, whether it was data, there were actually the same amount of bullying incidents in the high school as there were in the middle school that year. So one of the parents was concerned about the bullying in the high school. The other piece is I've talked to different folks who work in both buildings. David Scholl, Karen Carbone, folks like that, who kind of split their time once in a while. And their anecdotal information is that there's probably more bullying going on in 7th and 8th grade. By the time they get to 9th and 10th grade, that they've kind of gone past that phase. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Of course it happens. Of course we try to work on that. But so the concern about bullying in the high school, we think that at least anecdotally, it's just as prevalent in the middle school now as it would be in the high school. Personnel decisions moving forward are based on seniority with each union employee. So there have been, chatter just about, who should have a job, who should, be retained, who shouldn't be retained, and things like that. I will tell you that, we have unions in New York State, and it's always based on seniority. So if you're the lowest senior on a particular unit, so for example, in the administrative unit, Mr. Scholl is the lowest senior. And so that's where we had to look in order to cut an administrator. But that's for all unions, teachers, every union that we have, bus drivers, things like that. Concerns about reconfiguration continued, amount in reserves. So I want to just kind of just want to let you know a little perspective on our reserves. We do use reserves when we need to. We've been lucky in the last 2 years and haven't had to, other than we have used the capital reserve because obviously the building improvements that we made over the last 2 years we had to pay for. So capital reserve we have used. There are other reserves that we haven't had to use. For example, the ERS and TRS, which are the retirement reserves. We just know in the future, because of the last financial downturn, that those contributions go up, the ERS and the TRS. And so next year we're anticipating, yes, we absolutely have to use those reserves. So we don't want to touch them because we know for certain next year that will go up. School tax rates, we try to keep them as low as possible. Especially, we do know the Board of Education, and I know, during uncertain times like this, it would be very important to keep that school tax rate at a minimum. And I think you saw that in my letter, but over the last 10 years, Cato Meridian averaged in the 1.8% tax increase each year. So we think we try to keep that at a minimum. Class sizes being too small. One of the comments was that they know it's very expensive to have, 15 kids in a class type of thing. But again, the Board of Education and I and teachers and administrators believe that's one of the things that makes Cato Meridian unique, and we're going to try to keep them as small as possible. Having this meeting without public present, one person talked about delaying this meeting for a month. First of all, tonight's meeting, we have to approve the BoCES budget. It's a mandate across the state. So actually every district in our county is having a Board of Education meeting this evening because they have to approve the BoCES administrative budget. But also, we don't think, personally, I don't think that this is going to end anytime soon, and we'll be continuing to have these meetings throughout. The other piece to that simply is it takes us a long time to get prepared for next year. We are already working on the schedules for next year, and that takes a lot of time. So the quicker we can make a decision on this, the better off and more smoothly the things will be when students return in the fall. Losing Mr. Scholl is a concern. I agree with everyone. I love Mr. Scholl. It's just, again, simply based on seniority, he's the least senior in the administrative union. Will the high school ever move to the middle school? I don't know. I plan on being at Cato Meridian for a long time, and I hope that never has to happen during my time. But again, going back to our live birth data, it looks like our cohorts of students are going to remain the same, at least for the next 3 years. So that's a good sign for us. Will middle school age children miss out on dances, talent shows, and drama club? I'll just speak specifically because we've had discussions already. The drama club folks are working on a plan to make sure that doesn't happen. Ms. Eckel has emailed me, and she has some great ideas about how to make sure that doesn't happen. The talent show, that's something that would be a building principal thing, but we don't want to. We have a lot of activities for our middle school age children now, and we want to continue with those activities. Dances, things like that. We'll have to work that out. It really depends on how that goes. Typically in a junior, senior high school, you would have maybe 3 dances a year, and perhaps the last dance of the year is when the 7th and 8th grade actually attend with the others, obviously with parent permission. So we are gonna have opportunities for kids. And there's a lot of opportunities at the high school that maybe the 7th and 8th graders can start participating now that they're in that building. So we'll be cognizant of that for sure. Concerns about reconfiguration, will pre-K through 6th grade be on the second bus trip? The answer simply is yes. They will all be on the same bus. Future concerns about the availability of opportunities like access to college level courses. This particular parent was asking in her response, should I stay in the district? I don't want these things canceled. I want all these activities. I want all these opportunities for my kids. And I really believe that with combining and having 7th and 8th grade in the high school, that there's actually going to be more opportunities for these things. And I will talk about those a little bit later in my presentation. Will PE classes have the number of required minutes? Last year we did not. So Mr. Wren and I looked at that because I think that was an elementary parent who put that out there. Mr. Wren, do you want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. So we actually did have the required minutes last year. We have to have an average of 120 minutes per week. K through 3 students are supposed to have physical activity daily. It doesn't need to be just phys ed class. You're allowed to count recess as long as there's a certified teacher providing that. And we have 20 minutes a day scheduled into all of our classes in the elementary for recess. So grades 4 through 6 are supposed to have physical activity at least 3 times a week. So the schedule that we had last year did meet this, and we hope that we can maybe even do better this year with a new schedule.
Thank you. General questions about reconfiguration? Will the auditorium, middle school gym, and nurse's office space be continued to be used? The answer is yes to all of those. And in fact, we're going to be using at least half of the building, if not more, with the middle school. You could picture grades 5 and 6, if everyone knows where the buildings are. Grades 3 and 4 hallway connects to currently where the 7th graders are, but grades 5 and 6, it would just be walking on the same floor. So when you go from 4th grade to 5th grade, you would just be going down the same hallway on the same floor, and then the same thing for 6th grade. So yes, we're going to be using that space. Will band and chorus room continue to be used? The answer is yes, but we are working on a plan for what that for sure looks like. Will pre-K be running the elementary bus schedule? The answer is we are continuing to maintain that we are going to move forward with all-day pre-K, which would mean yes, they would be on the elementary bus schedule. Middle school drama, will there still be one? The answer is yes. Again, Mrs. Eckel is already working on that. Will there be an honor roll for 5th and 6th graders? That's something that we need to talk about, and Mrs. Mahoney, the new elementary principal, has to think about that, and we would get back to people on that answer. What would band look like? That is something, again, that we're working on. I've talked to Mr. McCullum about what that would look like. So general questions from the public: can school tool be used to track all students' assignments? The answer is yes. Current concerns about grading. So this has nothing to do with reconfiguration, but it's about our grading right now. And we will be coming out with more guidance. I will tell you the reason that we have not made a specific statement is simply because I'm hearing that the state, New York State, is going to come out with a policy. So we don't want to go ahead and make a policy and then have to change it based on state regulations. So we're going to continue to accept work, give kids feedback, and see where that needs to go. Have cuts.
And I think we're going to get guidance. Sorry to interrupt you, Terry, but we're going to get guidance from the state within a week. I guarantee it. I shouldn't say guarantee it. Who am I? But I just think that's going to happen.
Yep. Thank you. Have cuts been considered elsewhere? The answer is yes. Those are things that we've discussed at length before we even came up with the reconfiguration plan. So benefits of reconfiguration. I just wanted to point out some of the things that folks may or may not be thinking about when it comes to the benefits of consolidation, of having a pre-K through 6 and the 7 through 12 high school. The first one, which I had already talked about a little bit earlier, was the 7 through 12 teacher certifications are all together. So that way, if someone retires, maybe we don't have to replace at that time. The other piece, and it's something that I've talked about at length during the transportation study this year, was it eliminates these travel periods for teachers. It's contractually, teachers get a traveling period when they work from one building to the other. So that equals about somewhere between 2 and 2.5. The math isn't perfect, but of more teacher time, where it looks like we're adding staff, but we're actually not. We're just cutting the elimination of the travel period. So that gives teachers the opportunity to teach more periods. Obviously, it does consolidate office staff from 3 offices to 2 offices. It does, again, with Mr. Scholl, consolidates the administrative staff. It also consolidates teacher assignments, and obviously consolidates some of the student services.
Muted yourself, Terry.
Yeah.
Still muted.
I think he lost his audio connection.
There, Terry?
I'm here.
Okay,
Oh,
we can hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
There's
Sorry about that. Technology is great when it works. Curricular advantages. This is something that we're always looking to strive for. So the opportunity for students to take high school credit courses before 9th grade. We had started to work on this, but now it's all of those hurdles really almost get taken away. So could there be an 8th grader, for example, taking studio and art with 9th graders? Yes, it makes it a lot easier when they're all in the same building. That's just an example. There are other examples of that. Opportunity for more students to take more college level courses in high school, because if they're able to take high school credit courses starting in 8th grade, there will be more opportunities for them to fit college level courses in their schedule. Opportunity for students to take different elective courses, simply because there are more students in 7 through 12. There will have to be more elective courses that kids could take. So maybe it interests them a little bit better than some of the other elective courses. Opportunity for students to take more higher level courses in high school. Again, if you're taking high school credit as an 8th grader, for example, let's say you take Algebra 1 as an 8th grader. Well, by the time you're a junior and senior, you can get to pre-calc and calculus and beyond. So that's something for curricular advantages. General advantages, we do save money on heating and cooling. We didn't talk about that in the $300,000 that was mentioned earlier. We do. We have a system where we can control climate per room, and so obviously the rooms that wouldn't be used in the middle school, we'd be save money on heating and cooling there. It also cuts down on cleaning time for custodial staff. If kids and teachers aren't in those rooms all day long, they won't need to be cleaned on a daily basis. The one piece that is something that is a benefit is it's shorter bus runs. What I mean by that is we used to pick up at the high school and then go to the middle school or vice versa. And that took about 10 minutes. So that 10 minutes is now instructional time. So we're actually lengthening our instructional day just because we don't have to go from one building to the other type of thing, which is currently what we had to do. So the other piece is future educational programs. Some of our students may attend Q-Gonadaga-BoCES programs right now, but wouldn't it be great if we could have some of those Q-Gonadaga-BoCES programs right in Cato Meridian so our students wouldn't have to ride the bus all the way to Auburn. And also, obviously, if they are using our space, there would be some revenue that's made from renting the space to, for example, Q-Gonadaga-BoCES. So I've talked a lot. I'm sorry that I had to do that, but I think I've thoroughly answered most of the questions. And again, we'll continue with our regular board meeting. And if you need to text questions, Mr. Byrne, our board president, has that phone, and you can text your questions to the number you see there on your screen. Thank you.
Yep, and I have gotten a few good questions already, so we'll get to those later. So I would like to move on to our regular agenda at this point. Thank you, Dr. Ward.
Yeah.
Under personnel, I have a motion to accept a motion to terminate Elizabeth Van Nostrand, teaching assistant, effective April 22nd, 2020.
I'll make it. Jenny?
I'll second. Kristen?
Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to accept the resignation of Molly Johnson, high school English teacher, effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year?
I'll
I'll
make it.
make it,
Jenny.
Kathy.
I'll second it.
I'll second it, Kathy.
Oh, got it. Wait.
That's Kathy and Jenny, I think. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Just want to say she's been a fantastic teacher in our district, and she will certainly be missed.
Yes, very much,
Could I get-
so.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to appoint Rochelle Daggett as a teaching assistant with a probationary period effective August 31st, 2017 through August 31st, 2021?
I'll make
I'll
it.
make
Tim.
it, Kathy.
Tim and Kathy, any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to give a leave of absence for maternity to Danica Cunningham, elementary teacher in the kindergarten, effective approximately September 2nd, 2020 to approximately February 1st, 2021?
I'll make it. Jenny?
I'll make it. I'll second it, Kathy.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Moving on to financial reports. Could I get a motion to accept the treasury report and revenue reports for March 20?
I'll make it, Tim.
I'll second it. Jenny?
Any questions on them? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Pass 7-0. There was no action needed on the warrant this month.
I had a question,
Yeah.
Kathy. On page 5, we bought $842 worth of hoodies. I was wondering who that was for. I think Brenda's still there.
I'm still here, Kathy.
Okay.
Oh, she's on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit my thing by mistake. I'm thinking it must have been for some group. I'll have to get back to you on that. Any of the administrators
Okay.
are on this call? Was it purchased for possibly a group or a class, maybe?
Okay.
All right. I'll make a note of that, Kathy.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the warrants? Okay. Moving on. Could I get a motion to approve and adopt a memorandum of agreement between the Cato Meridian Teachers Association and Cato Meridian Central School District? This agreement shall expire and be of no further force and effect upon conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year unless extended in writing by the party.
I'll make it, Chris.
I'll make it, Kathy.
And Kathy,
You pick.
any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to adopt the following resolution? Shall the administrative budget of the Cayuga Onondaga County's Board of Cooperative Educational Services in the amount of $2,071,782 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2020 and ending on June 30th, 2021 be approved?
I'll make it. Mike?
I'll second it, Jenny.
Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Paul,
opposed?
was there, did we do school business number 1 or did I miss something?
I think I can
My copy, I don't. I made a paper copy and it didn't show up on mine. Now that looks like it does look like it started with a 2. What is that?
It's
Michael.
so it's a revenue anticipation note resolution dated April 22nd, delegating power to the president of the Board of Education to authorize from time to time and year to year the issuance and sale of revenue anticipation notes of the Cato Meridian Central School District, New York, in anticipation of the collection of revenues.
Thank you.
That was the resolution.
Okay. Can I have a
I'll make
motion
it.
on that resolution?
I'll make it, Kathy.
I'll
I'll
second
second it, Jenny.
Kathy and Jenny. Any questions on that?
Yeah, is this just so we borrow money in case we need it before revenues come in?
That was my
It's just, yes, Kathy. What it is just in case if our cash flow gets affected by our aid adjustment here, if we have that in place, it's like considered perpetual according to Bernie Donegan's office. And because we'll have that in place, they said that they would only need about 2 weeks notice if we needed cash on a short-term basis. So now that we'll have that in
Okay,
place,
okay.
it can always be in place.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Getting back to number 4. Could I get a motion to adopt the resolution casting a vote for each of the 4 vacancies on the Board of Cooperative Educational Services? Candidates are as follows, and my favorite in the group right here. Mrs. Kathleen Broad of Cato Meridian, with a length of term 3 years, July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023. Melinda Quanbeck of Port Byron, length of term 3 years, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Catherine Carlson of Skaneateles, a length of term of 3 years, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. And David Wyman of Southern Cayuga, a length of term is 1 year, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th of 2024.
I'll make it,
I
Jenny.
think it's supposed to be 2021.
Yeah, I guess so. That would be even more. Yep. So make that change to length of term, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can you tell me who first and second in, please?
I made the motion, Paul. This is Jenny.
Okay. So Jenny and
I'll second Mike.
Mike. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Thank you, Kathy, for doing that for us. Could I get a motion to approve the request from Amy Dubus, Spanish teacher, for her sons Chase and Owen Dubus to attend Cato Meridian Central School District for the 2020-2021 school year?
I'll make it, Carol.
I'll second. Yeah.
I think it's Carol Kristen. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to adopt the resolution to close the current Cato Meridian Middle School, grades 5 through 8, and create the new Cato Meridian Junior Senior High School, grades 7 through 12, and the newly configured Cato Meridian Elementary School, pre-kindergarten through grade 6, effective July 1st, 2020?
I'll make it, Carol.
I'll second. Carrie.
Carol and Kathy, any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to approve the recommendation to lay off the attached list of part-time Cato Meridian Recreation Center employees effective March 29th, 2020?
I'll make it, Jenny.
I'll second Tim.
Jenny and Tim, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Could I get a motion to adopt the memorandum of agreement between the Cato Meridian Central School District and the Cato Meridian Teachers Association for a retirement incentive in the 2019-2020 school year only?
I'll make it, Carol.
I'll second it, Tim.
Carol and Tim, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass 7-0. We will move on to superintendent's reports and correspondence.
Okay, I just have a couple of other things I wanted to mention out there. Through all of the things going on, I think one of the things that was on our radar, and people may have maybe they've forgotten about it, maybe they haven't, but the solar farm in the town of Conquest. So I've been working with town of Conquest Supervisor Charlie Knapp on that, because the whole solar farm itself will be in our school district. They're moving forward with that project. We will be eligible for a pilot agreement. And the unique thing that we're asking for is to be at the table when the pilot agreement is negotiated. So I've talked to Charlie and some others in Cayuga County. And it looks like that we're going to be able to do that. I just want the solar company to understand how it impacts revenue for school districts. And there are some things in there that they might not be thinking about. So I just wanted to say we're going to be advocating for as much as we can for our school district in that pilot agreement. So that's something that is we're continuing to work on. And number two, for me, it's the Food Bank of Central New York called me this afternoon, and they would like to set up a distribution center for those families who are in need of food. And we are working out the details with them, but we will post on our Facebook page when the Food Bank of Central New York, they want to use some parking lot space to distribute, and they will distribute food, and it'll be in boxes, and people will just pull up. They will put it in folks' trunk or whatever, and they can be on their way. So again, the Food Bank of Central New York is partnering up with us to distribute some food here in our community. Those are the only two additions I had this evening.
Okay. All right. Any board member comments or updates?
Hi, Paul. Tim. I got a couple. First, I know it's an administrative professional day, so all the administrators, thank you for all you're doing. I know it's a thankless job half the time, so I do appreciate that. The first thing I have is not being in high school. I just wanted to clarify a little bit of that. The 7th and 8th grade are almost going to be separated. We all know that gym, lunch, lab times, just because of equipment in the labs, they have to intermingle with the high schoolers. Can you, either Terry or Sean or one of you guys, can you kind of explain when you walk in where the students are going to be, and are we going to also have classes of 9 through 12 in those same hallways besides the labs or lunch or whatever? I can't picture it because I don't have a high schooler.
I'll let Sean go ahead with that one.
Okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I lost a lot of what you said, Tim.
I can reiterate if you'd like.
If you could.
Yeah, no
please.
problem. So I don't have a high schooler, Sean, so I apologize, but when you walk into the main room, you're saying that where your office stuff is going to be, there's going to be one grade to the right, one grade to the left. Is there also going to be, besides lab time or lunch times or gym times or special or any of the specials, that's when they probably mingle the most, but are there classes also in those hallways that 9 through 12 will be? Besides
we're gonna have 7th and 8th grade in the main hallway when you walk in the doors.
Okay.
Grade level 8 to the right. You know, the old entrance, the old main entrance would be off to the right, and then if you come in the new entrance, the 7th grade would be off to the left. There are labs in the what I'm going to call now the 8th grade wing, science labs, and they're going to have to be accessed by kids who are, 9th, 10th, 11th,
Right.
12th grade.
Yep.
Minimally, we're going to do our best to minimize that. The 11th and 12th grade are, we're hoping they are our most senior and therefore most mature. And we're going to have them farthest away from the office. They're going to be down by where Liz Kupiak's office was. And then the hallway directly above that. And Danielle, chime in if I'm misspeaking here, because, you and I have done the walkthroughs here, and I don't know the building like you do, but and then 9th and 10th grade are going to be kind of interspersed throughout the middle of the building.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. So also just wanted to let, because I know there's a lot of the public on there, that this was not a decision that was taken lightly. There's a few of us board members that have 6th graders now that are moving to the 7th grade. So this was a big decision for myself. I know that because I do have a daughter that's moving there. So just want everybody to know that this was a huge decision that's been talked about a bit. And so it wasn't just a quick thing that we rushed through. And then for Terry, I just have one question for you, because I've gotten some questions on the parking lot. I know it's a moot point now with splitting up the schools, but the parking lot is still getting done. Is that still in the works or no?
That is still in the works. With approvals and things that moved forward, we really couldn't turn the ship And actually, next week is when the contractor is going to start that work. So yes, we are going to modify that parking lot.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it. But that's all I had. And like I said, on Administrative Professionals Day, I appreciate all the everything you guys do. So thank you.
Just back to you quick, Tim. I want to keep my 7th and 8th grade kids as close to me as I possibly can. I'm going to keep my office in the what's currently the guidance suite, and my intention is to, I'm now a 7-12 principal, but my 7th kids are near and dear to my heart, and my 8th grade kids too, and it's a big pond over there, and they're little fish in that pond, so I want to keep them close to my heart.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
Yep.
This is Kristen. I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and all the staff who are really working really hard. And thank you to Mrs. Mahoney. I assume who kind of got the National Honor Society induction that happened today online together. It's a tough year for kids, and it's really nice to see them continue as many things as they possibly can do. I agree with Tim. This wasn't something that we took lightly, and I want the public to know that. I also have a 7th grader. He's my youngest, so I think my perspective is a little different, having had lots of kids through the high school at this point. But I'm actually very excited. To me, is that the 7th and 8th have because of the change. So I'm looking forward to that.
We're going to give them a great home.
I was gonna piggyback off of Tim's question, and this is for Mr. Gleason. A question has arisen that would lunch periods be separate for 7th and 8th grader versus the high school, and would gym times be separate so that we don't have high school and middle school kids in locker rooms at the same time changing for gym class, and would some of those things be separate as much as possible? And maybe you're not into that scheduling portion of it yet.
Yeah, and I'm not there yet. I do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Jen Sabatino, Cheryl Sawyer, and myself, and we're going to start working on all that stuff. But I don't have an answer for you right now. I'm sorry.
And then the other question the community is at, a couple community members have asked me is about Regents. So when Regents is happening, would 7th and 8th grade still report on those days when high schoolers don't?
My guess is that's going to be that'll be a discussion between Terry, and it's something we're going to talk about. It can go either way. If a building is typically closed other than Regents, chances are 7th and 8th grade will be closed as well. But I'm not positive.
Okay. All right. And I have a couple other things. And it's not for Sean, it's just for all of our administrators and Dr. Ward. What do we have a plan yet for the regression that's going to happen with students doing remote learning right now? I mean, we see it when kids go on summer break, that there's a regression in education. And do we have a plan in place to deal with that? When we are able to send students back into the building to deal with that gap? I mean, a lot of learning's happening. The teachers are doing the best they can. Parents are. I know as a parent, I keep asking the teachers because I don't know, because I'm not an educator. What are the benchmarks? Like, what should I be looking for in my 1st grader and 4th grader? What skills should they kind of have mastered or go on to the next level next fall? Things that I don't know what those benchmarks are. So I don't know. I know that there's going to be some regression. So it's just how do we communicate to parents? How do we what does that look like? And maybe we don't know. Yeah.
So I'll take it first, and then if anyone wants to chime in, feel free. The part that I was working on, at least today, when there in Berube, was actually anticipating that there'd be a relapse and us not being able to go to school in the fall, and what would that look like as far as our technology goes. So we're making plans really for the fall, in case in case we don't come back, or in case the country goes into falls back into this online learning piece. I'm proud of what we're doing online learning wise. We actually shifted literally in one day to do that, and I compliment the teachers and administrators for doing all that. But in the fall, if it's another extended piece, we need to have more tools for kids, and that's what Aaron and I and actually Dr. Hartwell from the BoCEs is trying to help us do with the state. So that's one particular piece. But as far as the regression piece, does anyone else want to chime in on that?
I could jump in real quick. I mean, all I can say is that, I think we're looking for a lot of guidance from New York State. We keep getting these updates from the governor and, changes. It's now May 15th. It's probably going to be longer than that. And, what do we do? But I think eventually we're going to have to hear something from them as to what we need to do to bring these kids who have regressed, for lack of a better word, up to speed. Summer work, I don't know. Additional work in the fall. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but something's got to come down from the state that tells us, hey, not just Cato Meridian. We're a little tiny little district. Great little district, but it's a big world out there. It's a big state, and there are hundreds and hundreds of schools, and there's got to be guidance.
I think I can chime in a little bit for students with disabilities. I don't know how much the board is aware in terms of how we're providing service right now. For kids with disabilities, we're providing direct special education teacher support, either through teletherapy or video conferencing, depending on the family. And we're also providing related services as well during that time. Because the teachers are directly working for kids, they are taking data in terms of their skills. So at the end of this closure, we will have some specific information for those kids with disabilities in terms of whether or not they maintained their skills or whether or not they regressed. And the state guidance for students with disabilities is that information needs to be utilized to determine whether or not kids need compensatory services or makeup services, so to speak. For kids with disabilities, that will guide the need for makeup, if that makes sense. And I can say that the feedback I'm getting from the teachers currently for those kids that they're able to connect with consistently, which is the majority, which I'm happy to say, they're seeing that the kids have retained those skills. They've learned already. But, we're obviously, I think we're all going to have to kind of play catch up in the fall in terms of, those concepts that kids in every grade level didn't learn.
If I could just add really quickly, the good news in this regard is that the process for us isn't really going to change. We're still going to utilize formative assessments to figure out where our students are. And then take that information and try to provide targeted instruction toward those kids. So I think our RTI process and our benchmarking assessments that we have in place, we'll just need to be very careful with that information and then have our teachers make instructional decisions based on that data. So I think that's going to be very important moving forward. It's definitely going to be different than a normal year for sure.
And I think as a parent, as a board member, I think our teachers are doing a wonderful job. But I would imagine as a wonderful job doing this remote learning. And I see the things going on just in my own home with how the teachers are connecting and spending so much time. But you know, I would imagine as an educator, it feels like you just got a big tool taken out of your toolbox, that face-to-face time. And, you know, you can, and like as a parent, I'm sitting at home going, I appreciate teachers more than ever, because and I reach out to them as much as I can to tell me what can I be doing at home to help bridge this gap. And, so I think anything our school can provide parents with of how to bridge that gap is helpful. So, and I just many thanks to what's happening to our school for our students. The other thing I was just going to end with is I just want to thank our parents, our community members, for tuning in tonight and watching the meeting and getting involved. Like, I don't want people to get caught up in the rumor mill of, don't get the facts. Like, contact your board members, contact your superintendent, your administration, find out what's really going on. And if you have input, you know, give it. And I appreciate the phone calls and the emails. And we have to look at all these changes from so many different angles. And it's important that you know, instead of complaining or whatever, like reach out to us. Like, all of us, I've never worked with a better group of people that care about students. And I think that's important for the community that does that. And I just want to thank people who have done that. I think that's pretty important.
Very nice. Thank you, Julie. Any other board comments? Well, if not, I will go on to questions. And we have really good group of questions. I'm not sure we have 100% answers on all of them, but I will go through them. The first question is, how many retirements are we looking to have for the retirement incentive?
So currently there are 8 eligible retirees. In order to be eligible, you need to have 30 years of service in New York State and turn 55 by June 30th. So we currently have 8 teachers that are eligible for that.
Okay. Next, what are we doing for seniors who are missing out on graduations and proms and trips and things of that?
So that's a Mrs. Mahoney question. I know there's some things in the works.
Yes, I can briefly speak to that. We do have some activities that are coming up involving some special delivery, so to speak, to our seniors. I've been in contact with other county principals to find out what's going on in their areas. And until we have something more definitive from the governor, it's challenging to predict when we could do these activities and how we have those planned out to ensure social distancing occurred. But we have been brainstorming ideas and looking asked by the governor.
Yeah, and I'll just add things like Mrs. Mahoney and I have talked about, as far as even a graduation ceremony, if we're able to have one and we have to practice social distancing, we would be probably moving it to our football field and you know, that type of thing. But again, that's a couple of months away, so it's hard to figure out exactly you know, what to do at this point. But the important piece is our teachers and some of our community members are on this with Mrs. Mahoney, and there's some neat things coming up in the future.
Okay. We have a question about the parking lot changes. Why are we still doing that change now when it won't be used by anyone?
It simply is timing. You know, the paperwork's been signed, the contracts have been signed, so we're going to move forward with, again, the modification to the parking lot is simply an entrance and an exit, having 2 different spots for that. So, you know, it'll be safer for folks attending baseball games and things like that. So it does upgrade the safety piece of it. Really, it's more of a timing piece, and so we just have to move forward at this point.
Okay. And in conjunction with that, how will the high school parent drop-off work? It's already a problem down there? And with the additional kids, will there be any improvements made in the drop-off?
That's something that we can talk about. Mr. Gleason and I can talk about that. One of the things that we strive to do is be as safe as possible. And from all of the experts out there in the field, including our who own SRO officers who were state troopers for 29 years each, that the one entryway is really the safest way, to do that. So, but we're open to suggestions and things like that. Our SRO is out there in the morning directing traffic, and so yes, we'll take a look at that. But again, having one entryway is what every expert tells us as far as being as safe as possible.
Okay, thank you. The last question on that tech, there are changes to the lunch area. Will they be made? As the cafeteria is small in the high school and it takes a long time now, and now there'll be additional kids using that space.
Yeah, so that's the scheduling piece that we have to figure out. Obviously, our intention is to keep, 7th and 8th grade. Maybe they would have the same scheduled lunch type of thing, and separate from the 9th through 12th graders. But that's something that's going to be worked on with the schedule. So we don't really have an answer at this point yet for the lunch piece.
Okay.
But that's our goal.
That's definitely something we're going to have to reconfigure and work on. That's one of the major scheduling, master scheduling things we have to work on. It's a big deal.
Okay. I had a question from a community member earlier in our meeting regarding our 4% reserves, and I cannot find the rest of that message. So if that person would send that to me again, I would appreciate that, and we'll get to that one. In the meanwhile, if we stay closed, when will freshman schedules come out? And is there a plan for a summer orientation, before the school year begins, possibly this summer?
Those are things that we need to think about, and obviously those are good ideas. So that's something that Mr. Gleason and his staff and myself, can work on. I know we do currently have a program.
Oh, you're muted again, Terry.
I lost you, Terry.
All right, sorry about that. So, we currently have a program linking our 8th graders to go into the high school as freshmen. So maybe we can borrow some of those ideas and extend it to 7th and 8th grade as well.
And another scheduling question, since 5th and 6th grade are on the second trip, how could they stay for extra help or for clubs?
So typically what that does right now for our elementary students is they actually come in early instead of stay late. The teachers are there, I believe it's 45 minutes, maybe 40 minutes before the actual elementary day starts. So they could come in on first trip, and get extra help kind of before school starts. That's just one idea, but we have to think about those things.
Okay. This would probably be for Liz. Is there an effect on special ed?
Sorry, my bar kept moving. I couldn't unmute. In fact, the shift is going to allow us, I believe, to provide some more support for kids. We're working on the projections currently. I met today with the middle school and the high school guidance counselors and Mr. Gleason to kind of talk about that. So within the next 2 weeks, all of the annual reviews are completed, and then we'll know for sure where we are in terms of staffing. But I'm encouraged. I think we're going to be able to provide kids with more support, and I believe we're going to see a stronger level of continuity of instruction pre-K to 6, which hopefully will help our struggling readers in particular.
Thanks. Here's a question. If, how the training for Ren is going to go in his position and training for principals who are now working in different buildings.
Yeah, so one of the reasons that we would like to have Mr. Scholl through September is to make sure that he begins working with Mr. Wren so he can transition into that. Typically scheduling and things like that, which take up a lot of the time from an athletic director's job, is they were already starting to schedule into the winter season. So the fall season is pretty much already set. And as Mr. Scholl starts to meet with other athletic directors about the winter season and things like that, that's when Mr. Wren would start. And was there a second part to that question, Paul?
No, it was about training of Mr. Wren and the principal.
Yeah, so the principals piece, you know, they attend different county principals meetings. So obviously Mrs. Mahoney would start to attend the elementary principals meetings. Obviously, she's also going to talk to Mr. Wren, you know, about what works and what doesn't work. The other piece we have is we do have the curriculum person from BoCES, Melissa O'Donnell, who is there to help support and guide as far as reading instruction, pre-K through 6, to help Mrs. Mahoney get up to speed in that area. So we have a lot of pieces in place, and we also may end up, you know, with mentors. That's something that we need to talk about.
Okay. This one says, for those who are unfamiliar with the project, could you explain the potential solar farm impacts?
Sure. So I'm going to, after I've talked about it this evening, I have an FAQ that Charlie Knapp gave me that I'm going to be putting out tomorrow. I'll probably share it on our Facebook page, but it has a lot of details in there. But there are some things that either I'm actually familiar with different energy projects from my previous district. So I think I have a decent, you know, background for it. But there are things in there you want to consider, like, for example, if you have a large solar farm and you have your total wealth in your community goes up, that actually drives down your state aid. So the pilot agreement has to at least provide that gap for a school district. That's just an example. But there is probably 400 questions. So if people would look at that document, I think it's great information. And I'll put that out on the Facebook page tomorrow.
Thank you. Was there any discussion in cutting the curriculum coordinator or the PR person?
Yes, we had that discussion. Those two particular folks are BoCES employees, which means we get state aid back on the amounts that we pay for each of them. So really, as far as our overall budget, they are minimal cost to us. You know, we get someone who is almost a full-time administrator in the district for about $45,000. So that to us, that's you know, that's money well spent. And then the PR person, you know, we basically pay, even though we pay around $40,000 a year after BoCES aid, which comes in the following year, and it's actually a revenue stream for us, we end up paying about $8,000 for that. So we think it's important to communicate to our community, and really the PR person is the one who really helps us do all of that.
Okay, next question. Will spring coaches be paid?
That is something that the county superintendent talked about in our answer. Unity is if they do not coach, if there's not a season, they will not be paid.
Okay. Let's see. A couple are rolling right in. We're caught up. The question about, we had sent the district had sent a letter home going over some of these changes already. And then the Auburn newspaper picked up on them. And there was a question about why people learned things through the paper that they hadn't learned on the letter. I didn't get that opinion by reading both. They seem to.
The only thing that really changed, that may have changed, and there wasn't information in the original letter, and it's simply because Dr. Hartwell and I hadn't had a discussion yet about hosting Onondaga BoCES programs. As the word that the paper used was tenant, and really we're talking about educational programs and bringing them to Cato. So when my original letter went out, Dr. Hartwell and I hadn't had the conversation yet, and that's something that was new after the citizen reporter contacted me.
Let's see. The question about just are there enough security cameras in the high school?
It's really a district-wide piece, and we want to add more cameras. We have a few spots, that we don't have eyes on, but we did last year adjust the cameras that we currently have. Our SROs spent a lot of time with our maintenance staff, pointing them in different directions and setting them up a little bit differently. So in the future, we do need to add cameras. But there are a few spots that, yes, we can't see in some of the nooks and crannies in the high school that we would like to see.
We're concerned that some information just might be going, it said it's just going out to Facebook. The concern is that not everyone really looks at Facebook, and they're hoping all that information would get onto the website as well.
Yeah, and we can do that. I just like to remind folks too that even if you don't have Facebook, on our front page of our website, you can click in there, and the information is also available. It looks like Facebook, but when you click in it, you can see some of the information, and you don't have to have a Facebook account in order to see the information.
Feedback from your earlier answer on the retirement incentive program. Of the 8 potential retirees, is there a number the district is looking to accept for early retirement?
Quite honestly, this is a unique year for us. We love all of those folks. They served the district a long time. But truthfully, the more people retire, the more money that we save, either through what's called shrinkage between a new employee versus an employee that's been teaching for 30 years, or possibly not needing to replace a position. So, that's something that is something that we will know. Every retiree needs to let the district know by May 1st, which is coming up next Friday. So we'll have a definite number that we can work off in order to build a budget. And again, those retirement letters are due to me by May 1st if they would like these.
Okay, I'll read this one here. Brenda, maybe I'll help with this. New York State allows up to a 4% for reserves. This is the question I spoke of earlier that I'd lost. What percentage have we budgeted previously, and what percentage will be planned moving forward?
Well, what the 4% actually is we are at that 4%. So any year that we have a surplus, the surplus goes into what we call a reserve, and the district works with the board to decide best where those reserves are allocated. Last year, for example, one of the things that we did, it was the first year that we could establish a TRS, Teachers Retirement Reserve, and it could only be funded up to 2% of the prior year's salary. So the board, Dr. Ward and I decided it was time to fully fund that last year, as which now we're finding out that was a very smart move to do. And the other reserves were put into the capital reserve for future capital projects. So unless the district has a deficit, we are at that 4% currently. And as I mentioned before, any surplus goes into reserves, or if we have a deficit, then we'll dip down into those reserves to make up the difference.
Okay. And here's another question Brenda may be able to help with. Has there been any serious discussion about combining back office functions, accounting, purchasing, administrator functions with other school districts?
No, there hasn't, because the accounts payable position in the business office, it was pulled back. Some of the function was pulled back from BoCES last year, saving the district a significant amount of money. It was absorbed in the business office. That position is now retiring, and it will be absorbed by the remaining people in the business office. So there's no need right now to combine with other districts as far as sharing those responsibilities.
And I'll just read this. Has there been any talk about combining, hang on, let me get to it. This one talks about having multiple superintendents for each small district, but we don't have multiple superintendents. We only have one. So I'm not sure where that's going.
So I will not comment on that. I apologize to who's asking you that question, because that was one of the questions I meant to put on the slide. I don't know why I didn't make it, but they're referring to different state systems of education. For example, down south, many states have one superintendent that's in charge of the whole county, and it's a county-wide school system. But here in New York, we don't have a county-wide school system, and really that's out of our control. In New York State, folks like to have local control, and that's one of the trade-offs for local control, is to have their own superintendent.
Gotcha. All right. Please let Mr. Scholl know that we appreciate everything he has done for our district and are truly going to miss him. Best luck in your future endeavors. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. It's been a privilege serving Cato Meridian for all these years, and I'll be back to watch games, that's for sure.
Good. Pick me up on the way.
Paul, I think isn't it important to say that there probably is some questions community members have asked about personnel and things like that we just can't legally, we're not avoiding answering those questions. We just can't tonight during public session. But those questions certainly will be addressed during the executive session, where we legally can talk about those questions that popped up about personnel issues. So communities, their questions are not being ignored. They just can't be legally talked about here in this public session.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Jenny.
Yep.
And I am caught up on questions. I do want to say, as I didn't get a shot during the board comments, I also want to thank the faculty, the staff, the board members, all the students and families of this district who have kept up the hard work during this unprecedented time. You've been amazing, and we're super proud of everybody involved here, and I thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. And so I haven't gotten a question in a couple minutes. Again, you can send email questions to the Board of Education and Dr. Ward through our district website. And we'll do everything like we did tonight to answer them at our next board meeting.
Can I just also remind the public, because it's new, Mr. Barobi helped us out. These are, we have these, all of these meetings will be taped from here going forward. So on our district webpage, under Board of Education, if you want to see a board meeting, you don't even have to view it live. You can, now they're archived, and you can watch any of our board meetings from this point forward. Actually, last board meeting is actually archived on our website.
Cool. Okay. With that in mind, could I get a motion to enter executive session for personnel issues? And I would like to invite David Scholl into that.
I'll make it, Carol.
Carol
I'll second.
and Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Sean says good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice job. So that ends the public. I thank you for everyone who tuned in and asked questions. I was interested. We really appreciate it here. It's going to help everybody we haven't. Thank you and good night.